he is going to be giving us his understanding. He's not giving us the gospel of this is the Zimbabwean situation, but his understanding is having been a player within the MDC and having been a player within the Zimbabwean political arena. It's good to get an insight of what he understands is what is going on with the Zimbabwean politics. Good day, Mr. Chiposi.
Thank you so much, Denford, for inviting me. It is a great pleasure. My name is Fungai Chiposi. I'm in Harare, Zimbabwe. Let me just clear that I ran as an independent in the last election. So you'll find a lot of people asking, are you really MDC and that kind of stuff? But just to be clear, a lot of us in Zimbabwe from the year 2000, we are MDC. We have supported the party. We have identified with the vision, voted for it, and all that kind of stuff. I ran as an independent for other reasons, but that shouldn't stop us all from participating in the politics of the country. Once again, thank you for the invitation, and listeners, let's have this journey together.
Yeah, and actually, I saw on Twitter, was it yesterday? You posted, a thread regarding what is currently happening. And, I saw a number of people attacking you by that question of saying, Fungai, where are you? Are you MDC? You're not MDC. And you're explaining this point to say, in the last election, I ran as an independent. And I like this term that you just used now. It sounds like a scripted term of saying, because of other reasons. But anyway, that's not the conversation of the day. My question is, before maybe we speak about the current happenings within MD, what is happening in the Zimbabwean politics today? Your understanding of it, the overall political situation.
My understanding of the Zimbabwean political situation is that we are a people that do not know how to disengage from our political squabbles. We are on election mode or in election mode for the whole lifetime. We do not know how to break off. We do not know how to take a break and actually start building the country. So we have very few statespeople. We have a lot of politicians and citizens that also want to actively participate, but not from a perspective of wanting to build the country, but from a perspective of wanting to see dominance within their political parties. So we have very few people that are actually in the process of building the country, that are mentally geared to build the country. I like how America does its politics. They go to their elections. After their elections, they then go into a state where they're building the country, focusing on economic, social fabric and stuff like that. In Zimbabwe, we don't. We are always in election mode. Even when the day after the elections, we are still in election mode. It's a weird situation, but that's where we are.
but I must say though, Mr. Fungai, there that I've seen Donald Trump from after he was voted in. For the past 3 years, he has been having rallies throughout. He's been in the rallying mode. He has been preparing for 2020 for a long time.
He's a special kind of guy. I will not say exactly what I think. That is a special kind of guy, man. Yeah, but so we, in terms of our political terrain and situation, we have a government that is not performing. We all know that ZANU-PF is not performing. We have seen the level of corruption that is being talked about within the communities, within the society. Sorry, if you see me turning my head, it's because I cannot get an idea of where my head should turn because of this screen. But forgive me for that. Yeah. Okay. So we have. We have people. We have people within government that are there to enrich themselves. This has been the past conduct of ZANU-PF, where they go into power to make money for themselves, and the people will see them again in 5 years, and maybe in the process of making money for themselves, they make a little bit so that they can campaign again in the next election and come in and win. So we are seeing corruption. Unprecedented levels of corruption are happening within the country. Tenders are being given to people that are not known, companies that were started in January this year, 2020, receiving tenders of $60 million. Stanford, I mean, I would love that, to start a company in January, about 5 months, in March actually, 5 months later, you're receiving a tender of $60 million and stuff like that. That is really bad. We are seeing people that are related to people in the presidency involved in distributing of certain things that are integral to the lifestyle of Zimbabweans, like Milimil, for example. You know, those things, they are all worrying because we are actually removing from the quality of life of citizens. We are seeing a government that is actively 24/7 involved in procurement of critical products for the country, like fuel. That is a problem. The government is supposed to be creating a suitable environment for players to come in and do what they want or do what they can in the economy. But the government itself is actively involved in that, moderating that particular industry. I cannot tell you today there were kilometers and kilometers of queues across town. People do not have fuel. Productive time is being, right now in this corona environment, you want anyone who can get out of the house and go and do something, or that is a letter to do something, to be able to do something that is good and productive, not to spend that time in a fuel queue. So we are also seeing at the moment, very sadly, a lot of divisions within the main opposition political party, where people are, you know, fighting. There are divisions, very, very big divisions, and we do not know when it's going to be settled. It's really worrying.
And actually, then you know, that's the main part of this discussion that you came to now. What's happening within the MDC? You know, it has been making headlines for some time, since I can say even from the beginning of the year. And one begs to wonder what exactly is happening. Obviously, you might not have the full answers of it. I don't think anyone can claim superior knowledge to this issue. But your understanding of what exactly is the dynamic, what's going on there?
Right. Stanford, the one thing that I can definitely tell you is that the opposition party came on the platform championing what I would like to say the change platform. The change platform was focused on creating a better environment for citizens through a constitutional government that is democratic and so forth. As you know, the name Movement for Democratic Change. And we expected a lot from these people. We supported them because we really thought, okay, these are better guys than what we currently have in our government. And they had their own squabbles. They started a long way back. I would like to say as far back as 2004, when Welshman Ngube left the MDC, went on to 2010. Some guys also left. 2014, we had the big one with Tendai Biti leaving. And then we had the unfortunate incident where Morgan Tsvangirai died in office around Valentine of 2018.
18, yeah.
Yes, Valentine of 2018. But he had also created one big disaster, which he created in 2016. At that time, he appointed additional presidents, Nelson Chamisa, as well as Elias Mtsuri, over and above the vice president mandated by his party, who at that time had been nominated at Congress in 2014, who was Thokozani Kupe. So whatever the reasons for the appointment, the net result is that we arrived into his death with three vice presidents that were now contesting for power within the MDC. And because of the unconstitutionality of the 2016 action that he had done on appointing these two extra VPs, it was then contested in court. When it was contested in court, I'm not sure of the timelines here, but also Nelson Chamisa had then risen to become the vice president, the acting president of the party on Tsvangirai's death. So now Nelson Chamisa had taken the reins. He did it with the National Council of the MDC, which apparently does not have powers to appoint a president, because a president, especially when he has passed away, or is resigned by being ill or whatever, is replaced at Congress. If something happens to the president midterm, he is replaced at an extraordinary Congress. So Chamisa used the National Council to appoint himself, and it created a disaster. It was challenged in court. The High Court gave an order to say you were unconstitutional in your own conduct in the party, go and correct it. They didn't listen to that. They then went to Congress, which was actually the 20th in the 20th year anniversary of the MDC, and the fifth Congress. And they said that Congress was MDC when they were there. When they came out and all the problems had gotten bigger, they said, no, the Congress was not MDC, it was MDCA. But just to take you back, MDCA is an alliance, MDC alliance, of 7 political parties, including MDCT, as it was called then. So his presidency in MDCA was due to some of the agreements that they made within the alliance agreement, right? So it's an alliance of parties. He was still president of his own party, which was MDC. So there were two things there. So the whole confusion, it's now a big mess of political organizations. I'm heading this, I'm heading that. So the whole confusion now is where we are today, where we do not know what exactly is going on.
Exactly. So from what I'm picking up from what you're saying, what I'm hearing is this unconstitutional approach and problem started emanating when the late Morgan appointed these 2 vice presidents. That is
Exactly.
where this whole chaos started from. But also before that, what would be justified as maybe the reason behind that, or maybe your insight onto that? Because I'm thinking, was he trying to avoid another 2004? Was he trying to avoid another 2010 or 2013? In terms of all these breakaway parties that were created by realizing, because I've heard some people say, no, the young man was becoming more powerful as well within the party and rising. Some people, having all those in your understanding or approach of that.
There's one thing, regardless of what we may say and talk about and all that, regardless of how maybe we may not like him, Chamisa is a charismatic personality. Right. This young man is very charismatic. He is very loquacious. He's able to speak. He's able to articulate himself when he's in a crowd, when he's in front of other people. He has confidence. This is the party that he has grown with from possibly the year 1999 when the MDC was founded. So he has been in there at the center of it. So it also gives him a lot of ownership in terms of himself. And I understand myself that as of 2014, there was going to be, there were power struggles that were happening within the party. And to calm down and appease the different factions and what was happening within the party, that was when Morgan Tsvangirai decided to actually appoint the young man as the vice president in conjunction with another stabilizing force on the other side, was Elias Mtsuri. And what we also, the other thing, there was also an issue of a Congress that had been delayed, and so many undertones to the whole discussion. But whatever was done, whatever was done in
you can finish that point.
Yeah, whatever was done in 2016 should not have been done. They should have found another solution and await a Congress where he can then get them appointed via Congress. We wouldn't be having this situation at the moment, possibly.
And maybe just to close that point, do you think there was an aspect of tribalism in this move? I know this is it's more of an opinion based question, because I've seen a lot of people talk about the tribalistic nature of that move, and how it panned out even after now, Mr. Tsvangirai passed on. There was a lot of tribalistic approach to the issue of Thokozani, you know, rising to that level of becoming the president?
I do not think that our politics will ever be free of tribal undertones, at least not in the foreseeable future. And we will always see tribalism in almost every end. But I would like to say that the MDC presidium at that precise moment was well balanced. Morgan Tsvangirai was the president, Thokozani Kupe was the VP, and we had good balance there. We had Entebele, Shona, or whatever else tribe you might want to call it. I'm not a big person on tribes, Mtupo and all that. I actually, I'm the least, I'm hopeless at it, to be very honest. So, and there was a man, there was a woman. So, you know, it was also having a very good gender balance. So, but if we follow tribalism, our country will find it everywhere, including in every household. People fighting with their wives in their own house. Somebody will say no because he's a tribalist, and he doesn't like that Mshona girl, and you know, all sorts of things. It's ridiculous. I don't follow it. Yeah.
And then now maybe to come to the current, maybe a starting point would be in your understanding currently, because a lot of people are not following this and understanding this. The current situation, who is the MDC, or who should be entitled to utilizing the name of the MDC, you know, the resources of the MDC? Should it be according to the court judgment, which others are saying there's an underhand of the ZANU-PF in it, or should it be the alliance, which others are saying the alliance is not an MDC? People came together, you know, and used this name, but it's not the MDC. So, but also those within the MDC proclaiming that they are entitled to it. They are entitled to the seats in parliament. So, who needs, you know, just your understanding of the current now dynamic?
Right. Listen, Stanford. Let me start with this. If you run into a courtroom and you are naked, stuck naked, you're not wearing anything, and you say to the judge, "Hello, judge, I'm here. Please tell everyone here that I'm wearing clothes." And the judge refuses and says, "No, but you're not wearing clothes. We can all see that you're not wearing clothes." He cannot declare that you're wearing clothes because it's an obvious fact that you're not wearing clothes. And this is the obvious fact that we have with the Supreme Court judgment. It was obvious. It was clear. It didn't need any layman like me that didn't do law at school knew that the MDC constitution had been violated. We knew it. I was talking to Chamisa directly at that time via Twitter in the DM, and I was telling him, please go to EOC, go to an extraordinary Congress. So everyone knew it. You may want to bring in ZANU-PF and say ZANU-PF has acted and is trying to break the party and everything, but you were instrumental in creating the situation yourself. You were instrumental in creating the dynamic yourself. So the SC judgment is irrevocable. It's not negotiable. It's not debatable. It's a fact. You may not want it, but that's what it is. The law was broken, and the court said, go and fix it. Now it's a question of how do you fix it? That's the question that's here. Where are we going back to? Are we going back to 2014 structures? Are we going back to the structures as they are? Was the Gweru Congress legitimate and stuff like that? Because some of us were not in the court. Now, from those that were in the court that talked to me, they said the judge made a word assessment of everything that has happened and what should happen. And you were specific in pulling the party back to 2014 and reactivating the structures, giving to Thokozani Ncube a 3-month term, Morgan Komichi a 4-month term as the chairman that was there because Love Momo had resigned. So he was no longer there. There was no way that the court is not God. It doesn't see what you haven't presented to it. They only deal with what you present to them, right? So in all the presentations, it was Komichi. So the Supreme Court judgment, to me, it's a waste of time attributing it to ZANU-PF. You created the problem yourself. You beat up your wife or whatever it is. You go to court. The judge says you need to go and dig 10 holes outside. It's got nothing to do with the judge. You beat up your wife. Go and deal with it. You know what I mean? So now, having done that, which one is the legitimate MDC? That's the first question, because it's a critical one. Towards 2018 election, Thokozani Kupe left the MDC where she was with Nelson Chamisa. And she had stopped attending meetings with Tsvangirai prior, but she then left and she went and started her own MDCT and took the branding of MDCT and everything. But she did not walk away with the structures. She did not walk away with the assets, with the building, like what had happened in 2014 in BT. She literally just left by herself, right? So the MDCT that was left by Tsvangirai, in its core and entirety, remained with Nelson Chamisa. It remained with the MDCA alliance part. And we can also attest to that fact by that Nelson Chamisa remained the alliance partner as president. So that's the MDC that the Supreme Court was ruling on, the MDC that was left by Tsvangirai. So that MDC was the one that was bound by the Supreme Court ruling. So and it was the MDC where the Supreme Court said Thokozani Kupe must be given back a time to go and complete the EOC and stuff like that, and everything else. And they disqualified everything that had been done by Chamisa from the time he was appointed via the NC up to date. So that is also quite clear to me. It's very clear.
So in the way forward, because I've heard many people ask this question to say, even when Morgan passed on, why didn't Chamisa want to go to an extraordinary Congress? And maybe you might, from your understanding, if the MDC were to go to a Congress today, who do you think would emerge?
I'm the kingmaker now.
Yeah, if you're the kingmaker, if you're the kingmaker, but also maybe with your let's say minimum understanding of the ground forces, right? Who do you think would emerge? Because this is a question that I met ZANU-PF people, MDC people, people who are apolitical, who have asked the question to say, why didn't they just go to an extraordinary Congress? Because a lot of people would think, and a lot of us are not involved in politics, right? Because at times, when you analyze from the terraces, it's not the same as when you analyze from the inside. He enjoys the support of a lot of young people. He can speak, when he gathers, even the old people, they come, clap hands and everything. The question is just, why not go to an extraordinary Congress? And if they go today, in your analysis, who do you think would emerge?
Right. Why did he not want to go to an extraordinary Congress? This is something that I would like to think that he has to answer by himself. But if I have to speak from understanding the situation as it happened, there were quite a few issues that were hanging on his head. One of the issues was that Thokozani was the legitimate acting vice president. He knew it. Thokozani had been nominated at Congress. So it was imperative on his part to act very fast before she had gathered enough forces to come and claim the throne, so to speak. Although I think he could have handled that differently. Then the other thing, I think he felt very entitled to the position, and he probably felt that the constitution of the MDC is just standing in the way of himself assuming power. And he then proceeded in that manner, which I think it was not very wise, considering what we are seeing now. But having said that, if he had gone to an extraordinary Congress at that time, Chamisa was probably going to be nominated by 12 provinces, and the extraordinary Congress would have become a formality. If he went to Congress today, with what the Supreme Court is saying, to say that we go back to 2014 structures, there's genuine fear on his part, and I understand, because in 2014, Douglas Monzora beat him for the position of Secretary General with those 2014 structures. But after his ascendancy to Presidium, he has also abused, or maybe abused is not the correct word, but victimized many of those 2014 people. So now it's a 50-50. If he goes to Congress now with 2014 structures and he's facing any opponent, it's a 50-50 situation. I would like to say he may eventually emerge a winner on the basis of the this chamisa thing that has risen in the communities and people. So there are possibly a lot of people, you know how Zimbabweans are like, we love power. The moment power moves into somebody's hands, we all line up and then we start following that person. So I would like to think that if he goes to Congress today, he could still win it. But I do not know whether that chance is still there for him, because now the party has said he is no longer welcome in the party, because he formed his own party, and the MDC is very clear about that. If you go to their constitution, point 5.10 in brackets actually indicates that the moment you join another party, you cease to become a member of the MDC. And whether this MDCA is a party or not, whatever discussion we can go into it, he has literally been in another grouping. And he has also done some things there within the MDCA that are causing concern, like the appointment of people that he appointed, changing the people and firing people and stuff like that. Now, there is a lot more that is there to disqualify him from this particular Congress.
And actually, whilst you are there, would we say there is irreparable damage for these guys to come together? Because I really think unity is what can, can really take people a bit much further than they would want. Would we say you can't go back there?
If you go on my Twitter, one of my earlier posts, I was talking about let us have dialogue. I firmly believe that the way to have a resolution on the Supreme Court judgment was dialogue among the partners. Namely, I listed at that time Komichi, Kupe, Chamisa, Monzora, and I don't remember who else was the fifth. I think I listed five, and Ngube, Washman Ngube. So I thought at that time there was the dialogue that was possible, but I think that either Chamisa's people or the elements around him were not quick to see how dangerous the Supreme Court judgment was. As we all know, Tendai declared it a brutum fulmen, which means of no consequence. So the comfort zone that they went into after the Supreme Court judgment was very suspicious, was naive in a way. They needed to have acted faster and gone into discussions. Now, can we say that dialogue is still an option? I'm not sure. I'm feeling that the Kupe camp, Thokozani Kupe, Monzora, Komichi, they are now feeling very confident that we are moving in the right direction. We are restoring the soul of the party. We are going in to restore the party to its founding values and what the party has always been for the past 20 or 18 years or so. So they now have momentum on their side. And I'm not so sure whether they're willing to have a dialogue. In my own view, there is always time for dialogue. There is always time for dialogue. People should always meet, should always talk, because what we are talking about a very popular candidate who has got the support of a lot of young Zimbabweans, despite his
shortcomings,
some of his shortcomings, questionable credentials. Like I didn't like the lying. I didn't like that. I didn't like the way he campaigned. I've got my own reservations, but I'm sort of the older people. The younger people, they laugh, or I mean, it's really cool. The guy can lie or whatever. It's hype and posh and cool. I don't know. They like it. So yeah. So but I think that a combination of the older leadership and himself could actually give us a stronger impetus as we go towards 2023. So I am always for dialogue, to say let people meet, let people talk, but I cannot then speak for the principals and what they are thinking and what they are feeling. But personally, also on my part, I am also very keen on seeing the party being restored to its founding values, because that was the MDC we identified with. I'm old, I'm 40 something now. I'm not keen to actually die in this level of poverty, with the nation potholes, stuff like that, jobs difficult to get, young people unemployed. I don't want to leave and be leaving my children, and I'm not sure what's going to be happening with these guys. What kind of, you guys have gone out, you're lucky, but a lot of people are still here, and it's not good.
And as we wrap up there's a very crucial question that we've been asking and talking, because as Baobab Chats, we're talking to people across Africa, in different African countries, development and the youth, and witnessing the kind and levels of apathy that you find in different countries, and in Zimbabwe. I think I'm not sure if people are apathetic or people don't want to show because of certain fears. My first question is it safe in Zimbabwe currently for anyone to be involved in politics, especially the young people? And secondly, your understanding of this discussion about the abductions of Joanna Mamombe and the team, which the state have come back and gave their rebuttal, in terms of not agreeing to say these were abducted, but just as a whole of this issue of safety, and we can use the situation of Joanna and them as an example.
You put me in a very difficult position, because I'm a I'm a person that cannot resist saying my truth. I want to hear, I want to say my truth. And it will make it very difficult for me to be a politician, actually. So, is it safe for young people to get involved in politics? I would like to say yes. Despite all the rhetoric and the vitriol that we see online, in terms of Twitter and platforms, most of the people that we have in Zimbabwe are very peaceful people. They are not keen to go out there and beat someone unless if they have the support of certain key political figures, my big chef and stuff like that. Otherwise, people are very keen to have peace. We respect the law most of the time, and it is safe. We are just seeing disgruntled elements that want to go and cause violence. We see them in the groups where they want to go and beat up that person for that political belief. But this is why we said, let's have a democracy. In a democracy, everyone is free to have their opinion. You are free to support the person you want.
But Fungai, there, I think maybe let's qualify that discussion, because the issue of safety, there's safety in terms of the societal makeup. Then there's the issue of safety in terms of the political leaders that, like you say, that have the ability to instill harm, whether with the ability to control the apparatus. So those two are different discussions of safety. I don't know if that makes sense. For example, if we were to look at this example we're talking of Joanna and the team, is the claim is that it's a state-sponsored abduction. That's the claim. Now, the civilian is out of that discussion. Of course, there is the discussion of the safety in terms of us as civilians, as neighbors. Because I think back in the day, around 2005, 2008, where there was so much fear within people in society as neighbors, people fighting, right? So those are two different. So I hear you have touched mainly on the one of societal approach, but in terms of this, authorities approach, what's your view there? And it's fine if you're not comfortable to answer that question. Anyway, yeah.
Oh, no. I'm never the one to pull my punches. No, don't worry. No. I think I was addressing the civilian aspect. that in terms of society or in our communities, what kind of people are we, so that the people out there need to understand that we are not really a violent person. When you see violence coming into our communities, it is because of some big hand that is behind that is now beginning to move the blocks. So then the Joanna Mamombe story, we all know that the security apparatus in Zimbabwe tends to enforce or lean towards the ZANU-PF, the ruling party, and do their bidding in terms of one or two incidences that we have seen. I think you recall 2008, how bad it was. The runoff, Morgan Tsvangirai, Tondera Indira, all those people that were killed. So the security apparatus tends to operate on the side of the ruling party, especially when they think that their stake is now their rule, or the power is beginning to weaken. But on the Joanna Mamombe story specifically, I remain very unconvinced in terms of the state's involvement. I was very unconvinced from the beginning, because the state, even when they were speaking, the ladies, it didn't make sense. I was also one of the key people, or not key, but I was one of the few people that were also actively looking for the girls, because I genuinely thought they had been abducted, because they know a friend that I also know. We're not very good friends, but we do talk here and there. So I was very disappointed when the facts started coming out. I was very disappointed when I got some of the information that from a friend that was doing some tracking and stuff like that, and telling me the story is not adding up and stuff like that. But we also have the Magombe story, the doctor, you know it.
Yes, yeah.
That was never clearly explained in terms of what happened, how somebody had a phone that was fully charged about 300-400 kilometers from Harare, and all these sorts of things after 5 days. So I think there are certain elements within our communities that are now taking advantage of what we know about ZANU-PF to create situations such as what we are seeing now. That's my thinking. And but that does not ever excuse ZANU-PF in terms of what they can do with state machinery. It has happened before. People have been abducted. We know about Zamara Itai, but he's not the only one. We have a fellow in Blowion. His name skips me. We have quite a number of people that have disappeared, especially towards elections, key campaigners. So we know that the state apparatus is very, very heavy-handed when it comes into our communities and start taking people that are active in political situations. But on those two cases, I remain unconvinced.
Who has the burden of proof? And I think, if I were to give an example that you gave earlier, of husband and wife is beating each other, and they go to the court and the court rules. What happens next is that when the other spouse or the child next tomorrow goes and reports at the court to say that I was beaten by my parent, based on that history, the burden of proof then becomes that of the parent who was before convicted, and I think this is where the challenge of the discussion comes in, to say, where do we go and where are we? But thank you so much, Fungai. Really, we appreciate your time, for being available to have this conversation and this chat with us. Just out of interest, you ran as an independent. Do you maintain your reason that it was just for other reasons? What were those reasons then? Come on.
Let me quickly, because I'm not going yet. You're asking me another question, but I'll be very brief. The burden of proof always lies with the accuser. Let us be clear. The burden of proof always lies with the accuser. You have to go and tell your truth and present the facts as they happened, so that whoever is investigating is able to arrive at the concrete truth and present it to whoever, the authorities, the courts, or anything, so that they are then able to either arrest, be shamed, or whatever it is that happens. But the burden of proof lies with the accuser. When you go to court and you're accusing your parents of beating you, you must show the bruises. Now, when I ran as an...
But there's a difference. But there's a difference between the courts and the what's the right term? the public courts. There's the courtroom, and then there's the a court of public opinion. But anyway, yeah, that's great. You can go on.
That's a story for another day. Let us never deliberate an issue on the court of public opinion, because we all know there is tyranny of the majority. So whoever is in the majority will always win. Then there is also sympathy with certain. The court of public opinion is rife with emotion, right? But we need to go into where emotion is removed and the facts are analyzed as the facts, so that we look at the facts. But in terms of myself, 2018, I ran quite late. I started running in March. The election was just 3 months away at that time. The reason why I hadn't run prior was because in as much as I'm interested in politics, I'd always said I would go in 2023. That's when I was going to come into politics. But at that time, I then saw that the candidate that was being put into our area, who was obviously going to win, was MDC, and he was a very questionable candidate in my view. There were a lot of stories of what had happened when he was a councillor and he had not developed the area. And I am very change-oriented. I want to see change happening in my community. I want to see my kids growing up into a better community. So that's why I took up eventually the baton stick and said, with what is happening with the MDC, with all this mantra centered on individuals, we are never going to see the kind of country that we thought we were going to see before we die. I might as well take part in fixing something and at least show an interest and participate. That's how I then came into the election in 2018.
Okay, no, that's great. But thank you so much, man. We hope to have another conversation sometime, and and just share as we develop this understanding. Like I said, as Baobab Chats, we're looking at different African stories, different African issues. The core of it is African development. As a continent, we seem to be lagging behind in certain areas of development of our people, and is to kind of engage. You'll find that from what we have discussed, some people in a different part of Africa will learn lessons from that and use it to apply to their own circumstances and their own conditions. But Mr. Chiposi, thank you so much. This was great.